While prototyping or designing parts of your game, your workflow is much smoother when you can easily tweak values in the editor or while the game is running without having to search for them in your source code, type them, save, run the game again. That's why we have export annotations. We use them anytime we want to tweak values in the inspector. This really matters when you need to iterate a lot to get the right effect, like when you're designing character movement and trying to find the right speed or acceleration. It also makes it easier to switch on and off the default behavior of an element only in some instances of the game without changing the code. Like, for example, when your game has many doors and you want some of them in your map to start out open and others closed. This video is sponsored by Godot game devs like you who invest in learning with GDQuest. Remember, for a limited time, you can pre-order our Godot 4 courses below launch price. They're rolling out starting January 30, 2024 on GD School, our own new learning platform. When you select a node in Godot, the inspector on the right populates with these useful widgets such as these drop-down menus to select flags, or these large text fields that can pop to a separate window to write lots of text. You had access to some of these in Godot 3 for your custom properties, but you could not do things like folding and grouping multiple properties in a category as seen here. This is now possible, and this is what we'll see in this video with these export annotations. On the screen, I have the code for a custom resource called inventory item, and you can see the inspector it produces on the right. If I scroll down a bit to the first export annotation, you can see that to export a variable to the inspector and display it, make it editable, you start with the @export annotation, followed by your variable definition. Now, if you use type hints, as we're doing here with the type texture, Godot will use the appropriate display corresponding to your type, and it will only let you drag and drop textures on this slot, for example. Now, this is fine for lots of types of properties. So, for example, the item type right below texture gives me a drop-down, and this is due to the use of an enum as the type hint. So if I control-click on type here, you can see it brings me to this enum with the entries weapon, defense, and container. And so now if I scroll back down and reopen my sword in the inspector, if I go to the item type property and click the drop-down, I get the three options: weapon, defense, and container. Godot is smart about lots of types of values. But what if you want to do something a bit special? For example, this sword has a price attached to it, and I want to display a little suffix there. But also, when clicking and dragging, I want to limit the minimum and maximum value. So you can see currently it's between 0, something is free, and 100, something is worth 100 gils, the currency in our game. For that, you can use the @export_range annotation. This one takes a couple of parameters that you have to pass in parentheses. The first one is the minimum value, 0. The second is the maximum value of the range, 100. Then the step of the value, so you can force the inspector to go up in 5 gils increment or just 1 in this case. And finally is a special kind of hint. In this case, you can ask Godot to put a suffix after the value. So you write suffix, colon, and then the suffix you want to display in the inspector. And finally, you have your variable definition. Next up is the most important addition in Godot 4, the ability to create groups of properties. To do so, you use the @export_group annotation, and you can see on the right that it produces foldable sections. So export group takes 2 parameters, 2 arguments. You first want to give the name of the group, the display name that's going to be on the little fold line there. And the second one is a prefix that will be used to group variables together. Now, if we remove this one, currently item_, and I reopen my sort, in the base category, you can see that now the properties are called item name and item weight. And so one way you can use this prefix, if I re-add it and reload my sort resource, now you will see base, name, and weight. So you can use it to remove some of the display name from variables. It is also used so that Godot will only consider the properties, the following properties, that have these prefix in their name, like item underscore name and item underscore weight below, but any other exported property will not be considered. So if I create a variable named test and we set it to an empty string, for example, if I save and reopen my resource, you will see that the test variable is not included in the base group. But if I name it item underscore test and I reload my resource, now it is included in the base category. In this video, we just look at the basics. There are many more useful export annotations that you can use, and you can find a comprehensive list in the official documentation. You'll find the link to it below the video. Subscribe to get more videos like these, and be sure to join our Discord community. It's a great place to give and get help from fellow Godot users. You'll find a link in the description.